Welcome to the shed. In this first broadcast, I want to just focus on a word that is so obvious in its use, perhaps we don't actually notice it. And it's a word that's crept into a phrase called the digital workplace. The word I'm referring to is the word place. Now, I've always found that word an interesting choice because it's simple and it's probably responsible for why so many of us found the world of personal or business computing so instantly accessible. In my case, it's as far back as the late 70s, early 80s. Because I was offered a computer that claimed to take me into a place. And interestingly, it was a place that was a version of the physical world. This place was the digital workplace, and it had words to describe things and graphics to characterize things that were faithful renditions of the physical world. The desktop, the file, the folder. Now just take those three. We all know what they were. I'd worked in an office and suddenly I was on a computer that was offering me similar things. And it was offering functionality that was quicker, more effective, and so on. What's not to like? It didn't take very long for the kind of folk humour to develop around the fact that people now had cluttered desktops, overstuffed inboxes, chaotic folders full of files that were in the wrong places. Is that ringing a bell? Because of course what happened was the digital version of the physical world simply reproduced bureaucracy. We hadn't solved those problems physically, and those early creators of personal computing, in a wish to make the whole thing seem friendly, accessible and recognisable, simply transposed, in some cases, the bureaucratic nightmare into a place which had even more storage for that clutter, inboxes that could be endless, and in the end we had people now with physical workplaces that were cluttered and digital workplaces that were cluttered. And that's the problem of seeing digital working as something that needs to take place in a place. Because human beings are wonderfully clumsy, we're always going to be slower than computers, we're beings of flesh and blood. Our eyes don't go as fast as a security camera's eyes necessarily. And so if we create a metaphorical space that requires us to be at the centre of it, then we're going to have all of actually the very best, but also mostly the worst, of the human condition transferred into this metaphorical space. And I find that intriguing because some of the best work that's currently happening in the digital world isn't making use of the metaphor space at all. It's talking very, very differently, and it's drawing on literature that comes from places like emergence and flow and dialogue. And when one app is allowed to dialogue with another app without human intervention, it can often be more effective than if human beings try to get in the way with their clumsy avatars taking ever more difficult steps into this sluggishly slow world for human beings. We're just not built for it. Biology, perhaps, is a good metaphor to draw upon, but human biology has got the limitations of physicality, and to simply transpose them into virtuality will render what we're also not capable of, as well as what we're capable of in this so-called digital workplace. So I want to offer something else. I want to offer the idea that we haven't found necessarily the words yet. And those of you that are impatient with the creation of new language and find it easy just to simply use the old words, well, that laziness is going to create the sluggishness that some of you might already be experiencing with even the smartphones that you might be watching this on, the folders on the screen that are chaotically disorganised, the keyboards that seem like versions of old typewriters that don't quite gather you in to your creativity. And even the fact that computers are struggling to understand our speaking, to render our words if they try and type them using dictation software. You might argue it's only a matter of time before these things come better, but I want to suggest that the digital world of work isn't a physical world at all, and it has laws that don't easily translate from physicality. We don't know what they are. They're going to reveal themselves to us. There will be some resemblance to physicality, but what we have here is an alternity that we don't quite yet understand. And people like Sherry Turkle, in her book Alone Together and her other writings, suggest it might be time just to take a pause and reflect and look at what's emerging here, so we understand what's coming up ahead, not by trying to drag it back into the physical world of physical metaphor, but actually to discover it, see what unfolds, and find our way into it with a lot more consciousness.